All right, good morning. We are here for our November 25th, 2024 Policy Committee meeting. Frank is here along with myself, Barbara, and Matt. And we have an agenda of a lot of items. It keeps growing, although we did make a lot of progress recently. So maybe I'll start by kind of summarizing how I put together the agenda and the cleanup effort I undertook. So I created a new section in the agenda towards the bottom that is the completed adopted section. So in there I flagged that we have completed student privacy and student records. Student privacy was adopted in June, and student records, those changes to the reg and the exhibits and the policy itself were adopted at our November meeting. Also adopted at our November meeting was student voter registration and pre-registration. So those have been on our list for quite a while. So that's great that we were able to get those completed. In that same section of student privacy, student records, going back up to the top of the agenda, we still have school 1120 school district records. And there was a recent last month NISBA update to the 1120. So I know we've already done a fair amount of work in 1120 and the regulation that we have in our policy folder. So I think it's probably better if we just work off of the current version that we have in the draft, and then we can add in the section unless anyone objects. I didn't notice any real significant differences between what we had in our draft and the new 1120, other than the new section on notifying employees of a request for their disciplinary file, which I think we can easily just drop in. So my hope for this meeting is maybe we can get through 1120, the 1120 series, I'll call it. And then also complete the computer resources and data management, which is part of the same section. First, though, we're going to work on facilities use, Frank, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you want to?
Yeah, if we wouldn't mind, have a conversation.
Yeah,
about that.
sure. And then student health services, I've just made a note here that for the December meeting agenda, I think we can put this one back on as just a revision and add back in the cross references to the policies we've now completed. That's why we've been kind of holding this one open. And then artificial intelligence, I think should be, we didn't really receive any feedback that required changes at the November board meeting. So I think this one is on the December agenda as a second read and for adoption.
And I will say that, speaking to some other school districts, some school districts have policies, some school districts do not. And everybody's using it. So I think it's wise to get something on the books to help at least guide what the purposes are. And I was talking to some colleagues over the weekend, and you know, just like the scope of it, they were like, no, this is really good, and they really appreciate it, and they're looking at using a similar policy to ours. And this was,
yeah, I think it's the kind of thing that this area of technology is changing so fast that we should probably plan to look at this one again, if not like towards the end of the year, like definitely for the next policy year.
We are piloting School AI now. So School AI is like a user tool that staff can utilize. And like one of the really cool things is one of the teachers who was piloting it actually had the students, because they couldn't find all the things they needed for second graders for like the animals, the Arctic animals and different things. So they set up a module where the kids could actually speak to the animal. So they would write questions to the animal saying, so where do you live? What kind of food do you eat? And the animal would talk back to them, and it would go back and forth in this kind of research kind of way, which the second graders, I asked them, the kids were like loving it. They're like, I talked to an Arctic fox today.
That is so cool. Okay, yeah, so I think that one's ready. And then I think we're ready to jump into facilities use.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
So that's 1,500, right?
Yeah.
Here's our,
all right, so I'm gonna go back to the policies. And your,
oh, that's reviewing
You're
adopted.
sharing?
I'm gonna move it, by the way. Back up.
okay, yeah, so this one, we made significant changes to, I think about, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And now we, after some, experience, I'll call it, with how the policy is actually being implemented, I've gotten questions from some community members. I think Frank has too. So it's,
Yeah, and I think we're gonna have to revisit this again at the end of the year, and I'll explain why in a minute.
Is that in the shared?
It's not, it's
drive?
in the review and adopted part of the shared drive. I'm gonna move it right now to a different component there,
Okay.
since we did it once before.
For yesterday.
Yeah, I'm struggling to find where it is.
I don't remember when,
Where's,
let me,
for some reason I can't move it. There it is. It should be in your policy one now. If you go to policy committees, it actually comes right up in your folder. It says 1,500. So the reason why I wanted to talk about it was, there's two components to it. There's your policy and then there's your fee document. I want to go to the fee document first, just to kind of show something to everybody that came up that I realized. And I can. So the fees may need to change. And we need to look at those because, again, it's not to, you're not making money off of this, right? That's not the goal of this. The goal is to break even. But when we're talking about our field usages and we're talking about our field itself, not the gyms, that they're using a lot of our fields, and for fertilizer and paint and everything else, even what we're currently using, Neil says that we are not breaking even on some of these paint usages because paint is super expensive. And now that we're looking at utilizing Cornell, not Cornell Cooperative, but Cornell, and they're coming in talking about that we have to put sand down and putting down fertilizer, and putting down seeds, and doing more of that, that's going to increase our costs. And the more people that we have on our fields and the more use is going to be a part of that. So we're going to have to look at probably increasing some of those field costs for all classes that utilize that. But that's something to look at after we have a better understanding of it.
so is there a difference though between a field? Because like when I was helping out with Kiwanis, like they bought all the paint for the lining.
It depends on the contract that the people utilize. So New Scotland Soccer has us paint.
Yeah.
And so, and that was not included in, so they wasn't included in the original contract with them. So that was something that, we were losing a little bit of funds on.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having trouble.
Yeah, so there is an athletic fields component. It's rated right. And if you look at it, it's $150 field to be used by the district. So you're not looking at a ton of money here. So it's, we're gonna have to really kind of work out a little bit more of the prices on that. But my bigger concern was something that came up when we looked at the professional fees. So the professional fees are the custodial Monday through Saturday, $40 an hour until 4 p.m. and $50 afterwards, 4 p.m. Sunday. And then the note underneath it. Custodial fees apply for all groups when the requested building is not otherwise scheduled to be open. So, that's fine for Monday through Friday use, as long as we don't have a lot of other things going on, because that's all dependent on manpower. But if you look at what our operation hours are, and I've never realized this before, It says that we're open on Saturdays. Our hours of normal operation are Saturdays 8 to 2 and Saturdays 8 to 2. We do not staff our Saturdays unless we have events going on. So that really is not normal operations for us. It's really actually considered overtime, or we have to flex hours, but I don't like flexing hours because I take a custodian on a Friday night and I move them to a Saturday. So if they can't get the work done on Saturday, I'm losing that ability to get the work done that needs to get done. So it's not actually helping function and organize the building as we need. So that was the number one thing that I wanted to look at, is if we could do a quick switch just on the hours of normal operation. Because we should be charging custodial fees. And everyone that I've spoken to, they know this. So all the school organizations, I met with them all, and they all agree, they understand that. You know, we don't have custodians on, and that's an issue.
So I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, the outside groups don't get to dictate our normal hours of operation.
Right. I saw this, I go, what is this? Like, and it never came up before because I just assumed our normal operations are Monday through Friday.
Well, I also think when Jim was putting together the fee schedules.
Yeah.
He was including Saturday in times.
He
that were
100%
open to
was.
fees.
Yeah.
So I don't think this
Yeah.
should be a surprise to
No.
anyone.
No, it wasn't. But the one thing is, and I was including it, and then I saw that. So I just want to make sure that our practice matches our policy.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing I just wanted to switch. If we are okay with that.
Yeah, so that is fine. Since do you have more you want to go through?
That was
on
the big
this?
one that I wanted to get done because I'm working through contracts now and working with people. And I just don't feel comfortable having our policy not match what I'm working with the people on.
I know you previously discussed the issue of fees for particularly outside groups. I know that they group, they
Yeah.
categorize the different types of occupants. Is that something we should expect to come back to?
We should,
Yeah,
absolutely.
So while we're on this,
Jim did want to increase the rates for non-groups. So like the dance clubs and dance groups, that was one that he was looking at that he felt was underutilized. Because that can be a revenue maker when you're having people that are from like not even around the area renting our facilities.
Mhm.
so the one concern that I was hearing, Frank,
Hmm.
just to flag it now for future, I can't get the drive to open. I don't know. If me,
It's not showing up in mine either, but
If you go to the main drive,
let me see. I just got it to come up. Okay, let's see.
my fee schedule is.
Oh, okay. I see it now.
Yeah, for some reason, when I moved it, it went right to your main component.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Now it is.
I had to reload, refresh. The complaint that I was hearing was, for the hourly fees for the custodial staff.
Mhm.
There was a concern that there were multiple organizations using the building. And there was to some degree, like double counting of that
Yeah.
revenue. So I know it's hard to
So,
administer.
I'm gonna tell you right now, so, I think the board is aware that I went in and I'm renegotiating and negotiating all the current contracts for our outside school use groups. So I've met with all those groups, and one of the things that I noticed was there is overlap with the custodial. So the one thing I said to them was, I need to understand the exact use hours, so that way I can cut down on your use. So let's say Learn to Swim is here, and Learn to Swim is here from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and CYO, it's BBC now. BBC is going to use our facilities. I'm not going to charge them $40 an hour and charge $40 an hour for that.
Right.
I'm gonna do a diminished cost, so that way I can split the costs.
Okay,
appropriately.
yeah,
Yep.
that was the.
Yeah.
the
And I
concern.
did speak to the groups and told them both that, because I don't think that's fair. We shouldn't double. Our goal is not to make money off of our community class 2 organizations and class 3 organizations. Our class 4 organizations is a revenue stream. I think we should be making money off of those people. Those are our non-resident groups. They don't have people here. But our class 2s and 3s, we shouldn't be making money off of. We should be breaking even.
I did.
Agree or
Uh,
or maybe not.
legal implications around that.
Oh, of revenue? If you put it back into your facility, and your revenue stream can go back. So at Lansingburg, we did this where, we would use a revenue stream to come back in, and the attorneys went through it all and did it. Then that was our facilities use, and it went back into the, facilities budget.
Okay.
So that way we could cost the replacement of turf, replacement of all those other things. So, yeah, it wasn't making revenue to be able to
Do something else
do
with it.
something else with it. It was directly back into so let's say we do the PAC and we put a PAC fund in to buy lights. So you're directly putting it into a stream. Yeah, that's how you can kind of do this.
Yep, okay. All
I
right,
agree
so
with you.
So you're addressing that through contract.
Yep.
Is there anything we need to tweak in here to
I think we should.
reflect that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have Jessica take out, because this is a PDF. So I'm just gonna have her take out our normal hours of normal operation. I'm just gonna have her remove Saturday.
That's easy.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna have the Saturday, and it's just gonna be like the range with school district. And then have it just be like that, the same as it is for Sunday, so
Okay.
Yeah. that
Okay.
was the big one.
So on the fees, do you want to come back to that at some
I would like
later
to,
point? I think whatever we changed, I'd love to see it supported by numbers.
Yeah. that's kind of where I'm at, that's why I don't wanna do it arbitrarily.
Yeah. Like, I know when we increased these amounts before, Jim had done some analysis around the numbers to get, because these were significant increases last
They
time
were,
around.
yep.
Because I assume these are numbers that are contained in other district policy or otherwise are easily enough.
These are in our district policy.
No, I mean, in terms of other districts, see what they're charging. like, for
Yeah, it
comparative
depends,
purposes.
everybody's facilities use is completely different.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have that class 2, class 3, class 4, not all school districts have that. So it really is dependent on, they're all kind of different. And I think our gym usages are appropriate. Elementary school gym is $100 for the season. The middle school gym is $400 for the season, and the high school gym is $1,000 for the season. I think I was trying to figure that one out a little bit, like of why the differences.
Yeah, have you heard much, because the PYC is no longer available?
Yeah.
So what are you hearing about that?
So that's why I'm meeting with a lot of people too, because, respectfully, we want to support our community groups as best as possible. But they're not supported by taxpayer funds, right? Our taxpayer funds are for us to run our school district and run all those things. So, they want to use our facilities, but they want to use our secondary campuses, and we're using our secondary campus almost all the time. So that's hard to be able to fit in. I have been able kind of just to allocate, but people want specific things, and I have to say, no, you get this area, no, you get this area, and, say, here's what we can provide you.
Right.
I'm trying my best to be able to support everyone. And I think people are okay, but they need to understand that we also have about 600 kids who play sports, grades 7 through 12, or 350 kids per season, and they're all using it. And then we have all these other events and community events and everything else. So
Yeah.
it gets difficult to find gym space.
But yeah,
And that's where I feel bad, because if somebody's renting our high school gym and they're only getting 2 to 3 hours a week, and they're spending $1,000 per season, and then they're using our elementary school gym and they're getting 10 hours a week for $100 per season, is that equitable?
No.
And that's the policy. So
Yeah.
it's something again, now that I have a very intimate kind of approach with this over the past month,
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
starting to see that I think we're gonna have to revisit some of these fees and usages, and maybe the season thing isn't where we have to be. Maybe we're gonna have to break it down by hours.
What, obviously the elementary school gym is not as, like glamorous as the high school gym. Was that part of what went into the dollar amount of?
I'm not really sure. I think some of the other component is the elementary school gym is, I've given it to a few people and they said they don't want it because it's too small,
It is, it's not regulation, right? So,
right?
Yeah. It's too small.
It's too small. And then the other people, they want, like, for example, the hoops in the small gym are not regulation size, right? So you can't really play basketball in there if you have the kids and the winter is when they play. You really shouldn't be playing in the small gym because it's not the right hoops. But
it's too small to be able to have like 10 or 12-year-olds playing soccer in it. So this is where the problems arise with how we can allow our communities to use it. So that's why it becomes difficult to organize the building, especially now when we're here, we're using our stuff all the time at the secondary campus. And I say secondary, middle school, high school people. When I got here, that wasn't something that yes, people heard. So I think this is something that we're going to really have to come back to, but I'd like to understand it better after Cornell gives us kind of our plan for what we need to look at to change our facilities and our satellite fields. Because I am going to have to close multiple fields this summer. We're thinking possibly 2 fields.
The elementary school, definitely for
The elementary
site
school is
work.
completely done.
That one's out.
Yeah, and then we're thinking the game fields over at the satellite field.
That's the lower,
Yeah, the lower.
the 2 lower.
At least one of those, but we're not sure. But we know that we have to close them in order to get them up to where we would like them.
Yeah. They don't get used those fields don't get used that much, or it's somewhere.
Right.
Lacrosse does.
Well, the problem's gonna be is that Kiwanis and New Scotland Soccer Club probably will want to use both of those, use those fields.
Right.
So we're just gonna have, and then it's summer.
Yeah.
We don't have drainage. We don't have over there. So those fields will become a dirt bowl by the time, by the time soccer season does come. So we
Yeah.
just have to be careful. So we're gonna work through that, but that's all I had on this one right now. I think we do have to do a nice review, probably come April of this.
Yeah.
But you're saying the upper field, the baseball field and that soccer field that Kiwanis uses,
Yeah.
that's not gonna be closed.
We don't know. I don't think so. We're trying to figure out how to get those fields up to par as best we can. I mean, they're all right, but we still have to increase their long-term use.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna keep this one on the agenda.
Yeah.
We'll adopt the minor,
Yeah, I'll have Jess do that.
assuming the board approves it, at the December meeting.
Yep.
You can just change.
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a simple one.
good. All right, so now I think we are ready to move to the 11/20. In the file, I'm gonna work off of is the draft policy 11/20 and reg school district records. In my folder, it's the second one, we said.
This one, draft policy 11/20.
Yep.
And you also are gonna use the NISBA one you said?
So I think we can, let's go through this as is, and then we can look at the specific
Okay.
change to the October version.
Okay.
Which was adding in a new section required by law.
It looks like there's something highlighted there that addresses it.
Okay, all right, so let's start at the top and we can work our way through it. Okay. So I think you guys all know, or you all know, that NISBA put out an update to this in April of 2024. That was to address ed law changes. And then, the October version has to do with notifications to staff if there's a request for a disciplinary file. So the policy itself is relatively short, so right, that's much longer. I'm just gonna,
It's right here, right? Upon receipt
Yeah,
of
yeah.
request for an employee's disciplinary records.
oh, so yeah, I think we can drop in. There's a little more language on this.
That's funny because our attorney put that in and then NISBA
Yeah.
now put it in.
Yeah, so the note in here says, new per regulation attorney
Yeah, that's funny.
language, not NISBA, so.
Look at me, I was ahead of the game on this. I'm
You were.
pretty proud of myself.
So well, you might as well just go to it. So in the
I'm impressed with
NISBA,
myself.
um, policy, this is the October sample. So after the destruction of records section, they added a new employee notification of disciplinary records requests section.
That's fine.
That is relatively short, but I think it requires its own section. So,
So it's in between retention and litigation. Huh?
yep, exactly. So I'm just gonna cut and paste that
Perfect.
into the new one.
Yeah.
In the same spot that it's in the October draft,
That works for me.
and then we can clean it up. So we need to clean up the font and everything here, but
Yeah,
it's
let's do that.
easy enough to drop it in. Okay. All right, so we can delete this paragraph that's added upon receipt of a request.
Yep.
Because we're gonna address it later.
Want me to do it or you want to?
I got it.
All right.
Okay. Anyone have, comments on the paragraphs above? I think these are all fine. Okay, retention and destruction of records. Somebody put in a highlight, the district will dispose of only those records that do not have sufficient. Anybody, I did not highlight that,
That-
so I don't know where that came from.
So that might have been me when I had the attorney review these things back in the past.
Okay.
But it's been a while, so I can't
I know
remember if I
it
did.
has been. This one's been out there for a while.
I believe that was added aspect of it.
Are you good with that language?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, all right, so we'll remove that highlight. Okay. And then moving down. Saying we've got another highlight, but I think it's all the same issue. Delete that highlight. Okay, and then we have this new section, employee notification of disciplinary records requests. I'm gonna delete the advisory text from NISBA. Unless somebody wants me to keep it while we go through it.
No, I'm done with it.
No? So the one thing that's in here that I guess is worth discussion is there's no requirement to notify the employee, but they recommend that it's, or I shouldn't say that, if there's no disciplinary file, apparently there's no, there's no need to notify the employee. But NISBA is recommending that you do anyway. I agree with that.
Good.
Okay.
Doing it 5 days.
Up to you. I mean, I
Yes.
think 5 days is reasonable.
I think it's a lot of days actually, but I think it's time.
Okay.
I will have a question regarding this if it ever comes up, because it's a personnel matter, so I don't know what's eligible or out there to FOIA. Matt, do
My,
we,
my general knowledge is that there's clearly a difference between what's discipline and what's not discipline,
right,
particularly for instructional employees.
yeah, I'm wondering.
So if it's a counseling memo, that I think just under the law would not be disciplinary. Whereas if something under 3020A crosses the threshold into what is disciplinary, a letter of reprimand
That would be considered,
or a finding by a neutral, then I think,
that would be. the
then I
one
think that
they
would be disciplinary.
Okay, so that would be the things that would then be able to be given out.
Yeah, because if something's not disciplinary, the default rule is that it's,
Personnel, right?
I think it's personnel. and
Yeah,
I
Okay,
think it would be an invasion of privacy.
that's what I was, that's why that's whole thing kind of,
Because they're bare allegations without any findings or any admissions.
right, that's, so thank you for
Yeah.
that clarification.
Okay. I'm just fixing the font because that's how my brain works. Okay. So in this section, references public officers.
Matt, you're correct.
Yeah. Okay, we've got the 5 days again. Send notification to the last known address or email address. And if current contact info cannot be found, the district will document its attempts. Purposes of this policy, the district defines disciplinary records as any records created in furtherance of a disciplinary proceeding, i.e. any investigation and subsequent hearing or disciplinary action conducted by the district, including but not limited to the complaints, allegations, and charges against an employee, the name of the employee complained of or charged, the transcript of any disciplinary hearing, including any exhibits introduced at such hearing, disposition of any disciplinary proceeding, and the final written opinion or memorandum
So it
supporting.
really does follow 3020 zone.
It does. I mean, my concern here is that are these in the disjunctive? I mean, if you have complaints, allegations, and charges that have not culminated in either a final finding or a settlement resolution, or I don't know that the complaints alone or the charges alone would have to be given, and quite frankly, under FOIL should be given to a requester. I think maybe these should all be in the, maybe some language that aims at,
I know what you're saying. If it's just a complaint, but the district never undertakes a disciplinary investigation.
Right.
Based on that
or
complaint.
even if it does and then it does nothing, or if it does and
But they receive a complaint, they look into it and they find it unfounded. It's not a disciplinary hearing because it doesn't, they
Right.
never went to a disciplinary hearing. Right? They didn't move forward.
Well,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to go to a hearing, but it didn't result in a charge.
well, I mean, or
Well, they're saying. Further with disciplinary proceeding. I see what you're saying, Matt.
I think it would be, if you wanted to fix it to address the point Matt is making, maybe we could say the charges against an employee and related documents. Right, because then you're only getting to those related documents if there are charges. Or you could say and related complaints.
Well, when it says the complaints, allegations, and charges. So
Yeah,
that means all three together, correct? So there has to be a
Well,
charge in order to
that's
get the
the-
complaint and
that's the
allegation.
concern. Is it clear enough? Or could you just say,
Well,
I want the complaints?
No, you can't, because you have to have the allegations and charges. I
That's,
say get rid,
good. That's a reading that's consistent with the law,
Yeah.
but
I agree with you. I say switch it up, so it's charges and any other documentation that goes along with it. It's basically, you're saying the same thing, but it's just clear.
I think it's clear that you're not gonna get just a complaint standing alone. What do you think, Matt?
I'm deferring to you guys.
Yeah.
because
You're both
this-
lawyers.
like,
You're
I'm
the two
like,
lawyers
this
on
is-
this. I read it like I would read like anything else. It's complaints, allegations, and charges, all three. a person who is not an attorney may not read it that way.
Well, and that's kind of exciting because I'm thinking of, for example, I'm thinking of, I know that there's one case, it's out of Onondaga County, but it just is cited pretty widely for the fact that, for example, 3028 charges in and of themselves are not foilable because it's an invasion of privacy, because they're just allegations that have been unproven. So I guess that as one example is, if someone says, regardless of what happened to them, they may have been withdrawn, they may be mid-hearing. But as long as there has been no findings or admitted findings of culpability, then those things are not subject to FOIL. The flip side of that is, my understanding is that if there's a decision out there that says there are findings of guilt or culpability, then I think that those matters where there's been no findings are redacted, and then in those matters where there are findings have to be turned over because they're disciplinary records. I guess, and I apologize, I didn't get a chance to take a look at this one in particular ahead of time. I guess my concern is that if someone says under this, well, this new law doesn't really change the right to request. It just changes the notice that the employee would get. But if someone says, as we stand here now, I guess, let me ask this question. Somebody sends in a FOIL request and says, give me all disciplinary records for John Smith.
So you know what? I don't know if we need all this other stuff in it, because here's what's going to happen. If
Yeah.
somebody foils that and says, give me all the disciplinary record for John Smith, I'm going to call our attorney
You're gonna
and say,
Yeah,
hey, what's legal here, what's not? And then our attorney's going to advise us. And then our response with the FOIL following the 5 days and 30 days and everything else
is what you are entitled to under the law.
100%.
I
agree.
I think less is more here
I-
with this language.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think,
I say get rid of it all. Just,
I think we keep the first paragraph.
and then get rid of the rest of it.
Totally. I meant the definition of disciplinary
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
For the purpose of this policy, just get rid of all that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, because I'm just going to call the attorney. Like, that's when you said that, I had a light bulb. I go, wait a minute, I'm not going to.
What happened? Yeah, because I needed to remind myself that this does not expand what someone is entitled to.
Yeah.
It just expands.
Yeah, because when we get
policy.
requests for records,
Notice.
I always go through the attorney and say, what are they entitled to, what are they not? Because I don't know this.
Right.
That's what we have counsel for.
all right, I'm deleting it.
Yeah, perfect. That was a good conversation.
Okay, litigation hold section. I agree with Matt, you made a comment that the
It's a
duty
while
to
ago.
preserve,
It's October 1, yeah.
that the duty to preserve records could be triggered before
Yeah,
And it-
district is served
by
with
the way,
legal
it is.
papers.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We do it all the time.
It's, so it's really like, in the event that the district is served with legal papers
or otherwise.
or otherwise anticipating litigation, I
Yeah,
think
I
this
mean,
would work, right?
yeah, I mean,
What else?
I will tell you, I've been an administrator since 2005. We routinely save things and thought of litigation, and 90% of the time, it doesn't happen, 95% of the time. But we save a lot of things because you never know,
It's
right?
that 10%.
Yeah, it's at 10%. So, yeah, or otherwise, I go to 9% agree.
Okay, so what do we want to change it to say? Or anticipating litigation?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting text from a child who's telling me they have pneumonia.
Oh,
It's going around. A 3 to 4 week incubation period, by the way.
oh, that's all great.
So I'm texting him to get the drugs. Okay, anyone have other comments on the first paragraph? I think it's fine.
I have nothing else.
Okay, good. All right. Let me undo the highlight on that. Okay, the next paragraph addresses the issue of communicating with staff the responsibility with regards to record retention. They say that in here, it's a best practice to have department-specific guidance. But if all the records management is done centrally, then we may not need that paragraph. So Frank, how is our records managed?
It's done centrally.
Okay,
And
So-
well, the transportation department has their own because DOT has different requirements for record retention and comparison, but
okay.
Jenny handles all that. for
Yeah,
us.
but I mean, they're still gonna abide by whatever the applicable law is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so we're not gonna develop and disseminate department-specific retention schedules and guides. I think we take all this out. Anyone object?
No.
Matt?
No.
Okay. All right, so I think we are good with the policy itself. As far as cross references, I think just looking at our current 1120. Let's see what cross references we have in there. We only have the cross reference to 5,500 student records, so yes, we need to add in those other two cross references. The one thing to note is 8630. I mean, we can keep in the cross reference.
I feel like we've done these
So
recently.
8630 is on our list,
Mhm.
to get through. I think we have an 8630. So we'll just keep the cross reference and when we update it, it's good. Okay. All right. I think this one, the policy is good. Now we can move on to the, related reg, which is further down in the document. So I did not see with the November, excuse me, October 11/20 update from NISBA, a new reg. Did you see it?
No,
Okay, so then I think we're good to work off of this reg, which is from the, April update. And I didn't think that we needed to put anything in the reg to address the employee notification change. So I think we're good to just work off of this. Okay, so. As I mentioned for the April update, there's, the edits to this to address Ed Law 2D. And then we can just jump into rules and regs related to inspection and production of school district records. Okay. So records designation of officers, the records access officer will be the treasurer. Does that work for us?
that's
Ray?
what we currently have.
Okay. Who will receive requests for records of the Board of Education, make such records available for inspection or copying.
So I just want to clarify, when they're saying Board of Education, they mean the district, correct? Like district records?
So this
That's where, because,
is confusing.
yeah, because the FOIL
it's-
officer gets all requests for all district things. It's not Board of Education, it's.
The district sits above the board as.
Right, that's why
organization.
I'm confused by
Right,
this.
yeah, and that last bullet, compile and maintain a detailed current list of subject matter of all records in possession of the
I
board.
think it's the
So
district.
that seems to be,
I think it should be district, not board, correct?
I'm not sure what is intended. I agree, district makes more sense. Because the board, like, we don't have access to records. Everything we have is
Yeah.
either executive or public.
Yeah,
So-
I don't understand why it says board. I mean,
Yeah,
because we're talking about the entity
yeah,
and how the entity functions.
I'm gonna change it Board of Education to district.
Yeah.
In each of these, because I don't think it makes sense to have it just be
Well,
limited.
because I mean, just the beginning of the regulation itself, the first sentence after that gray block is the following comprises the rules and regulations relating to the inspection and production of school district
Right.
records.
The board thing about, like, I don't get it.
But I mean, are they, and I'm not a lawyer, are they talking specifically just about board issues at this point, not the district? I mean, maybe they're specifically pointing out board stuff because this is about records.
No,
No.
they're talking about, from the way it looks for the rest of it, I see where you're going with it. But if you look at 2 and 3, they're talking about district records.
Okay, well, just because they're saying like, ensuring protection in the note above, ensuring protection of sensitive district information. And I'm just wondering if that would be things that are, like board specific items.
I think what they're meaning by that is what is allowed underneath FOIL
Mhm.
and what is public access or not.
Mm.
It's interesting. Every time I do a FOIL, I learn something new. I feel like it's.
Is there yes, I think I might have run is there kind of like an archive of changes between, I mean, do we know, kind of looking at this from a legislative history standpoint, do we know when and why board was put in there, or is that just?
I don't know. Let me look at our current 1120 reg.
Probably says board, we never paid attention.
Oh, and that's often,
Yeah.
that's 90% of the time is that
When
the
you
words
read
are used, intended to be interchangeable.
Yeah.
So, so our current 1120R has Board of Education and receive requests for records. And then it has compile and maintain detailed current list by subject matter of all records in possession of the board.
Yeah.
But there is no second bullet.
Yeah.
Which
that's new.
the second bullet has ensured that the district information
remember what I
is
did.
not permitted to be
Anything that
released.
was new, I highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
There it is. All right.
We got there.
So,
Thanks for checking that out. I knew I did work on this. I just can't remember
yeah,
exactly what.
so this, the second bullet does not exist.
I think
in
it's
our
supposed to be
current,
interchangeable.
Um,
District and board.
but our current one, the reg does have board. But like, again, I don't think that makes sense.
I think it should be district.
Because FOIL covers the entity as a whole of which the board is part. So,
Yeah, in a generic policy, it doesn't make sense to limit it to board records.
No,
I don't-
especially like, that one paragraph above, like where it's designation of officers, it does say relating to the inspection and production of school district records, and then it seems to get narrower.
I wanted to discuss here because do we actually, that seems like a Herculean task. Is that something we do? Compile and maintain a detailed current list by subject matter of all records in the possession of the board?
Or district.
We have.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we have them. I mean, we just have to find them all.
I think, I agree with you. I think it's like insane.
Because if you
Right.
create that duty,
That would, I mean, that's like a
So
complete
We have-
compendium
yeah.
of.
we compile and maintain.
it's like an
lists.
index.
Yeah.
Saying,
Well, we have it all. We just have to find it all. We don't, so we need it. So I think when the FOIL person is just supposed to do that, they are supposed to compile and maintain when requested.
Well, I read that as even broader, is that
I
they're
do too.
supposed to maintain an index, like,
Yeah.
like a card catalog, like a library does.
Compile
So
and
that when you
maintain.
get a FOIL, you can say, oh, we have these records in these categories. Let me
Mhm.
look in those categories to see what might be
Yeah,
responsible.
We have that.
You
so-
have a detailed list by
So like
subject
when,
matter,
when
or-
you get a category for RFPs, we have an RFP listed. When you get it by emails, we have a process for emails. So we do have those things, like, so when we get FOILs, I mean, we've gotten, especially during COVID, we got tons of FOILs. And we have categories based off of those things, and then we have to pull the data for it. I think it's compiled.
Okay,
All right. Well,
sure.
thank you
Yeah.
for complying with the board's policy.
Good job.
Yeah.
Is it
As-
in the
as-
policy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's never been an issue. I mean, when we have FOIL stuff, I mean, we can, if someone asks for records for special education students, we have those. When they ask for
Alright.
records of, board agendas, we have a detailed list of those.
Mm,
Okay. All right, so,
I'm gonna get a FOIL tomorrow, then having it report.
so I just changed board to district in this section. Otherwise, I think we're okay. Sound good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna delete the gray paragraph too.
There's some furniture.
Ooh,
The truck just pulled up. Ooh.
that's probably the ones that run backward.
Okay, paragraph 2. Superintendent of schools with the board's approval will designate a records management officer for the district. The records management officer will develop and oversee a program for the orderly and efficient management of district records, including maintenance and information security as it pertains to release of district records. That is a new requirement
Yeah,
to.
We've already been doing.
The records management officer will ensure proper documentation of the destruction of records in accordance with this schedule. What schedule?
There's a schedule that's put out of what we can, how long we have to keep things for.
That's the LGA,
Yeah,
the state archives.
yeah, and it goes from attendance records to disciplinary records to tax records to regencies to local exams, you name it, we have to keep.
Yeah,
And
it's
there's
just,
timeframes on all of it.
I was just commenting that we don't reference the schedule anywhere before that.
Yeah, it's in
It's
It's
in the
yeah,
policy.
it's in the
Yeah.
policy.
So
so
do we want to
maybe,
be more descriptive, just because?
maybe we just
Otherwise-
put in accordance with the schedule
I
LGS
I should
dash
keep
Um,
the schedule and call it a day.
I would say it's right in the policy. It says the records retention and disposition schedule LGS 1.
Regulation I think, is just restating and regurgitating the policy, so. Since it's already up there, it's up to you guys.
I personally don't think it hurts to reference the schedule, just so people are clear and, you know,
My only concern would be, do we think the schedule is going to change?
right. That was my next thought too.
It requires,
Yes,
well, it requires an update regardless.
that's kind of where I'm at, is
So,
the policy can be updated, but then we only have to update the policy, not the regulation.
right?
yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it alone. Okay.
One's benefit, but they don't have it.
Right, that's very helpful, actually.
Okay, all right. Definition of records.
After I figured that.
A record, this is, the only thing that's new in here is a reasonably detailed current list by subject matter of all records in possession of the district, which is
You said
not
we-
what the
Other ones have.
other one says. So do we want a reasonably detailed or detailed?
I like reasonably detailed.
Do we want that above? Currently, it says,
I also have a question.
sure,
So in, definition of records number 1, it says in any physical form whatsoever. do we have to delineate physical and digital?
No, because it should all be a record. Let me see.
I added reasonably detailed up top, by the way. I think it makes more sense to have them match.
Yeah, you're right, Barbara. I think we just delete physical in any form whatsoever.
That is, yeah, that makes more sense.
Doesn't have to be physical. Are you good with that, Matt?
Yeah, I'm just reading down below, microfilms, although they still do exist.
Yeah,
Computer tapes or discs.
I would hope.
We may
not.
have some of
Making me
that
feel
stuff
old.
You never know.
in the vault. I mean,
Wow.
the
Yeah,
vault
but
is extensive.
Is it beyond a records retention schedule? I would encourage you to review all of that and get rid of that stuff.
Think so.
Add it to the list. Okay, so do we want to make, the edit above to say reasonably
I
detailed?
did
current
already, if
list?
that's all
Oh,
right.
perfect, yeah,
Yeah, it made sense to make them both.
reasonably detailed, yep, okay. Same standard in both, okay. Okay. All right, paragraph 3, has not changed. I think it's fine the way it's written. Okay, access to records. Item 2 reflects the requirements of public officers law. Changes, okay. I looked these changes over and they're consistent with what I remember from my days as a public officer. So I didn't have any problem with these changes. Anyone have questions or concerns about paragraph 2? Paragraph 3, procedures. Request to inspect or secure copies of records must be submitted in writing, either in person, by mail, or via email to the records access officer. Forms are provided 1120E1 and 2 for written and email requests, but are not required. Ms. Frank, you wanna
Yeah.
just get rid of? So let's look at what E1 and E2 are. So E1 is, application for public access to records, and then E2 is a request for records by email. We do not need, do we? I mean,
I don't think we need these.
there's no required form or
No.
FOIL.
I say we get rid of them.
So, I mean, I guess these are helpful to the extent of if someone doesn't know what to ask for, it
Right.
gives them a guide.
True, because I mean, it is saying requests, like how would you go about requesting it? Right? I mean, it is a procedure.
I don't know that we need or should get rid of the forms in their entirety, but at least consolidate them into a single one.
Can we use it as an example? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, your request may be made as per an example
Yeah.
in form E1 or E2, but are not required. And then you just leave them, just say, there's examples that are here that you can use if you so wish to. I don't think we need the for office use only, because I would never use that. Nor have I ever used that. And if it's denied, we send a letter back, a formal letter back stating the date of their request, the date of our, initial response to them, and then all the other components to it.
Yeah.
There is a very structured
Yes,
thing that
yeah,
we do for this.
there's,
It would not be this in any way, shape or form.
No, it's very, formulaic
Mhm.
in terms of how you respond
Yep.
to flow or this. The one question I would have, Frank, are we doing the acknowledgement within 5 days?
Yeah.
That's required under
Yep.
the law.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, we have, usually it's done very, very
let
quickly.
me see if it's probably in the draft and I'm not remembering. Okay, so as far as the forms, the 1120 E1 probably requires some tweaks just because it's got the 25 cents per page. Which you may not be allowed to charge under the changes in the reg.
Right.
What's that? What happened?
If you've already produced the same record within the last 6 months or something, you can't charge for
Okay,
it.
that's right.
And if records, my recollection is if records are delivered electronically, you can't
You
charge
can't
for it.
Right.
Perfect.
So why don't we just get rid of that? And do we want to say example of application for public access to records or example instead of application for? Because we're not making this mandatory, right? Like this is,
We could do sample.
yeah,
So, okay, so let's try and get through the draft and then we can come back to
Yeah.
the forms. Okay, so for now, I'm gonna delete the orange. We want to say sample forms are provided?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's fine.
No, I'll take out the R and I'll resolve that. I think that was me.
okay. Okay,
And the 20 business days and everything else, it's all law.
yes, yeah. So. Okay, this is fine. Paragraph 4 is fine. I'm just moving through. Okay, I'm through paragraph 8. Everybody good?
Mhm.
Okay, all right, next section is records exempted from public access. No changes in the first section. There's a note from NISBA. We suggest changes to items 4 and 5 to more accurately reflect public officers law. So instead of, confidentially disclosed to the board, blah, 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 they change it to, our trade secrets or are submitted to the board by a commercial enterprise and which if disclosed would cause substantial injury to the competitive position of that enterprise. That is, consistent with the law. It's just rewording, I think, so. So, I think we could, under the law, make the for-profit business entity request protection so that we're not making those decisions. I don't know what you, right? Like usually, like if you, let's say it's in response to an RFP and there's information in there that submitter would consider a trade secret, they can request under FOIL protection. of
Do they know
those
that? Though, and how
records.
do we notify those individuals?
Well, usually it would be in your RFP. So I don't know what we have in the RFP.
We typically don't put that in it. That hasn't been practiced, so we'd have. to
Yeah,
change our
the
practice.
point is that you don't want the district to decide what's a trade secret,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Because if you get it wrong and then you get sued by the other
Well-
party,
Well, what about the flip side of it is, isn't the onus on the business to, and I don't know what the practice is in terms of specifically advising them. If there's something that's a trade secret, tell us. But if they don't, I mean, my initial reaction is that if you are, as an ordinary matter, bidding on public business, this is something you should know about. And if you don't say to the district in your RFP that, by the way, we consider this to be a trade secret. I mean, I don't know. Should we accept any duty here, or is that something that a private business already should know well enough to know?
I personally would like to push it off to the private business,
Mhm.
but
yeah, I mean, I guess it'd be helpful to look at what we say in our RFPs about this. I mean,
Yeah.
most for-profit businesses should be smart enough when they're submitting their RFP to request protection from disclosure under FOIL of information considered a trade secret. Usually the way you do it is you put that note in there, and then if there's a request that would cover what you submitted, you request, and the district can, really should probably grant it, notice, right? So that the for-profit entity can kind of like assert their rights in response to the FOIL to protect it. It's complicated.
it seems to.
So it's probably worth,
I'll leave it as is, but look at the RFP for future reference.
Well, as I wrote a note about, and then speak to the school council about when we do have RFPs about what's in it.
I seem to recall, I mean, not that I've, looked at a million of them, but the RFPs that I respond to, like in my own personal world, there is statements that like specifically tell you, like, don't list your trade secrets, you know what I mean? Like, or be very wary of, saying something
Yeah.
that you don't want shared publicly because you're responding to a public.
yeah.
I can't look right now at some of our RFPs because I'm.
Oh, yeah,
Because I
yeah,
think
no,
you're- but
no,
I'd
I
like
think
to-
it's I think it's for another
Yeah.
day.
I agree.
But again, I think the RFPs that we're looking at, and this is where I'm kind of going, is what are they talking about? Because
So, I mean, it could be like, your pricing methodology, like, you might come up with a bulk bid, but the way you got to that bid.
so like
maybe included-
so if we're doing construction and different things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure like. Yeah.
like this, like school AI, right? Like, at some point, we may do a bid for that, and the technology underlying how school AI works, right?
Right.
Might be considered a trade secret. So,
I get it. I don't think we'll ever do a bid for those things because you do them underneath NARIC and other.
I know,
yeah,
but you know what I'm
consortiums and state
saying, like-
contracts. Yeah,
just as an example.
I get it. Yeah. I'm thinking more like, an EPC. Right, an energy performance contract.
Mhm.
You go an RFP for those. There might be trade secrets from the energy performance contractor, from those energy performance people of what they're using to save energy in comparison to others. So that's where I'm looking.
Mhm.
That's where my head was.
Yep. That could be. So, yeah, I think we can keep this language as is, but I think it's, might be worth a check internally just to
Yeah.
see what is our process
Yeah, I was gonna look.
if we get a request that would. I mean, mainly it's gonna come up in the context of RFP,
Mhm.
right? We don't
Yeah,
have
probably.
trade secrets as a district. Okay, how 5 are compiled for law enforcement purposes. Interfere with law enforcement investigations or judicial proceedings, except that if the district is not conducting the investigation, it must receive confirmation from the agency conducting the investigation that disclosure would interfere with an ongoing investigation. Would not. Do not apply to records that, okay, all right, it's good as written.
Yeah.
Too many except that's and nots.
Yeah, it's like a double negative almost. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The rest of this just seems to mirror what's in the public officers law, so I think it's fine. Through paragraph 9.
Pardon me.
The formatting is all messed up. I'm sure Jess can clean that up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess. All right, section 5, prevention of unwarranted invasion of privacy. So I, put a highlight on delete because I don't think it's delete. I think it's redact.
I think it's redacted, yeah.
So I'm gonna change that because
Yeah, I was
no
surprised when
one
I saw
should be
that.
deleting records.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I know when I saw delete, I go, really?
I think that's in our full language and we can fix it. Okay. Not limited to, no, to. An extra O and 2.
Oh. Oh, yeah, look at that.
All right, okay. So item 5, disclosure of items involving the medical or personnel records of a client or patient in a hospital or medical facility. Our current version, Trisha put a note in, thank you, Trisha. She's still having an impact on the policy committee. Is worded differently, so let's go to what we currently say. Okay, we say, disclosure of information of a personal nature reported in confidence to the board and not relevant to the ordinary work of the board. This section, this again uses board.
I like number 5 and the new one much better.
So this again uses board. I think these should all be district.
Yeah.
I agree.
Also, I mean, at least for the.
But that's
continuity.
the old one, right?
No, I'm looking in the draft.
Oh, where is that?
Under 5, prevention of unwarranted, it continues to talk about,
Oh,
This is very curious as to how it ended up with board. Unless somehow there's a assumption that the district records are in the possession of the board, but this seems strange to me. All right, so let's compare. We've got disclosure of confidential personal matters reported to the district. So that in the policy is item 1. Disclosure of employment, medical, or credit histories. That is item 2 in both. Sale or release of list of names. Okay, it's 3. Personal nature, economic hardship. Sorry, I'm just comparing. Okay, and then, yeah, this NISBA draft has disclosure of items involving medical or personal records of a client or patient in a hospital or medical facility. And our current policy as disclosure of a personal nature reported in confidence to the board and not relevant to the ordinary work of the board. That's the same as, I read that as the same as item 1. Right,
Oh, it totally is.
so I think we can either change this,
Is this old one in the current policy as well?
no,
Like, so it looks like they moved 5 up to 1.
so 1 is in our current
Is-
policy, and then our current number 5 is the same as 1.
Oh, okay.
And,
I think 5 is fine. Is it,
and none of us can be blamed for that because it was adopted in 2007 or amended in 2007. So I think the question is, do we want to have some reference to medical or personal records?
I like
I think-
5 in there.
I think, yeah, I think it's good for like, some visiting the nurse or some other information in a physical we receive or something.
Well, also that, like, let's say I have a person who goes to Four Winds or an offsite facility, we shouldn't be disclosing that information.
Right.
Right, and I think that's what they're, that's another component of that as well.
Okay, so it should be disclosure of items. Do we want, I guess client or patient works, right? If it's in the district's possession, they're not our client or patient. but
Right. A client or patient or a
Of
person.
the hospital or
Yeah.
medical facility?
Yeah.
Okay,
And we pay, and when individuals go to intake places or other places like that, we do have contracts where we pay for the schooling and other components for that.
Yep.
So here's paper.
okay. All right, so we'll keep that 5 as is. Unless otherwise deniable, disclosure is not construed to constitute an unwarranted invasion of privacy when identifying details are deleted, when the person to whom records pertain consents in writing to disclosure, or when upon presenting reasonable proof of identity, a person seeks access to records pertaining to themselves. Okay. All right, and then, there's a new suggested paragraph. Dealing with PII.
Hmm.
Additionally, even if a release of information would be permitted under the state's FOIA law, the district will not use or disclose any student or staff PII unless it benefits students in the district in conformance with FL 2D, blah, blah, blah. Releases that benefit students in the district include improving academic achievement, empowering parents and students with information, and or advancing efficient and effective school operations. I don't like the and then or. I don't know if I like any of this.
I like the last paragraph.
PII, this paragraph, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just because basically it says, yeah, the district can do all these things, but in the end, we're going to work with our data protection officer and district attorney if necessary to determine any of that.
Yeah. So do we release any information under this benefit students in the district? Like, are we releasing any PII?
Underneath FOIA? Or underneath,
This is apart from FOIL. It's saying, even if we could do it under FOIL, we're not gonna release any PII unless it benefits students in the district.
And then those 3 bullet points.
Right.
Yeah, that-
I can't name a time that we have. but I'm not gonna say that we may not ever in the future. So I don't know the answer to that, but I can't say I can pinpoint a time in the past, 5 or 6 years I've been here that we've released PII that has improved academic achievement or empowering parents and students with information. That I can't.
Let me see what's in the current, I'm guessing, because this is new language,
Yeah.
I'm guessing we
Yeah.
don't have it in the current
No.
policy. We do
I think
not.
what they're trying to do is, in that policy, they're trying to safeguard the ability for the district, if ever needed, to be able to release PII. It's giving you an ability to do so with justification, right? They're saying, well, you can do it, like, here's why you would need to do it. And by the way, check with the superintendent, the records management officer, and the school attorney before you do any of these things anyways. That's kind of the way I read it.
Yeah, I would like to say, even if a release of flow would be permitted, blah, 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 unless the district determines
Yeah, I like that.
it benefits students in the district. Like, I don't want anyone to be able to come in and say, well, this will benefit your students in the district, therefore.
Mhm. But even if they did, doesn't the second paragraph still say though that the superintendent, the data protection officer, and the district's attorney would have to determine if that was?
Well, it says FOIL, so
Yeah,
I think adding that determined by the district
Doesn't hurt.
up
I think
there,
it's just
and,
like
you
that
know,
and suspenders.
and the
right?
district would be superintendent, district data protection officer, and district attorney if as needed.
Right, and it's completely within our judgment. No one can.
Right.
Argue with it.
Yep.
I just think it gives us a little more protection against having to release stuff that would otherwise, that might be PII.
Mhm.
Okay, any other comments or questions about this section? Okay, all right, listing of records. Let's get through this in the next 4 minutes. Pursuant to section 87(3)(c) of Public Officers Law, current records retention schedule for school districts published by the commissioner serves as the list by subject matter of all records in possession of the school district, whether or not available under the law. The superintendent or
Superintendent or
designee in consultation with the records management officer.
This
will
is the same
develop-
thing we removed earlier.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna just delete this whole sentence.
And that's language doesn't read well.
Okay. Okay, litigation holds.
Yeah, I think there's something.
Impartial sentence.
Yeah, right? I guess this isn't really.
Let me see what we have in the current reg. I don't think we have anything like this. Litigation hold is not in the current policy. I don't know that we need a section in the right on this. The policy says everything it needs.
Right, that's what I was just going back up to.
I'm inclined to delete the
Yeah,
section out
it's,
of the reg.
Works for me.
You good with that, Barbara?
Mhm.
Phew. Okay, so I think we've got this one in good enough shape to make revisions to the reg, or to the policy and the reg. How do y'all feel about getting these up for revision for the December meeting, and then we can come back to the exhibits if we want to make changes
Later
to those?
That's good.
Or do we want to at least change the current application to say sample? The E1,
Oh,
Did we write sample on?
yeah.
we put it in the
So I think,
reg, but we didn't put it in the exhibit.
I think it's all right though, right? Because if we say the reg says that it's a sample,
Mhm.
that means that it's not required, as long as it's in the red, because it doesn't say required on the
And
policy.
if we're gonna come back and maybe either drastically change or eliminate or consolidate the forms, maybe we'll just do it all at once.
Yeah, well, I think we, um,
I'm gonna have Jess update and format it and then put it on for the next board meeting.
is that what you were suggesting, Matt? Like come back to the
We
exhibit
could come
later?
back to the exhibits later. I think
Okay,
if we
the
put
policy.
sample in the policy or sample, I think we put in the
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah,
I think that,
and then NISBA does have, what I would consider to be significant format changes from our current exhibits. So maybe let's get the policy on for December.
Yeah.
And the reg, and then let's, next meeting,
works for me.
tackle the exhibits.
Yeah.
Our
Sounds
next
good.
meeting's coming up quick too,
When is
so
that?
this should all be fresh.
Right?
I hope.
I work better when we go back to back on these things.
Yeah,
We're December 6th, aren't we? For the
I
next one?
think so.
It is really soon, jeez.
what day is it?
I seem to recall the 6th, I don't know.
That might be a problem for me.
Hmm.
All right, I think we can, stop recording, and I think we're at time, so good job, everyone.
Mhm.
We continue. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. We somehow figure out how to.
Thanks, Archie, for keeping us all in line here,
All right.
like a surgeon, like, next.
Hold on, it's recording. Jeez, I really stink at this. There it goes.